From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
Welcome to Tiger Cats Game Day presented by Tiffany Gate Fresh Gourmet on the Ticats Audio Network. It is Friday, July 21st, and at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Hamilton Tiger Cats will look to defend Tim Hortons Field against the rival Toronto Argos, the last remaining undefeated team in the CFL, versus the recently 2-0 Hamilton Tiger Cats. Mike, how are you feeling about tonight? This one is going to be a hot one.
Yeah, it's awesome anytime it's, the Cats versus the Argos. But to think back to the beginning of the season and to say the Argos are the only undefeated team left, that would surprise me. I mean, we talked about it, right? We did not expect something like Chad Kelly to come out and maybe be one of the best players in the CFL right now, right? AJ Ouellette to kind of be taking that Toronto offense on his back, and then the Ticats to be in the position they are now, going with Taylor Powell as the third string quarterback. It's definitely something that we would not have guessed. But anytime the Argos come into Tim Hortons Field, the crowd is going to be pumping. There's going to be a little more energy from that Ticat side. So I'm looking forward to it because it's a huge, huge test, and these are the games that you need to start to win if you want to start making, some waves in that playoff push.
Absolutely. And for this game, it's a East Division game. So those ones tend to count for double, especially when the East is looking relatively strong this year compared to years past. You've got teams like Ottawa taking down Winnipeg. You got Toronto, that's 4-0. So really anything can happen as far as the playoff race in the East. So after this game, finishing out the first third of the year, we're starting to see a little shape to how the storylines are going to develop this year. And it just makes sense for us to start at the start with the main character of tonight's battle, Taylor Powell, starting at quarterback for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Now, there's only so much we know about him at this point, but I mean, this guy has a 158.3 QB rating. If you take away all the rest of the details, he's looking mighty dangerous. But what do we know about Taylor Powell, and how does he fit into this Ticats offense?
Corey, you got it exactly right. What we know about him is that he came in, he led a good drive, he found Tim White in the end zone, and he's gonna run similar offense to what you've seen Matt Schultz run, what you saw Bo Levi Mitchell run. They're not gonna change the offense completely for him, right? But what he can do is he can move a little bit. We've saw it a little bit in the preseason. I know if you were around training camp, stuff like that, you could see he was a pretty athletic guy. So really, it's a guessing game at this point because, you said he threw 4 passes, right? That's 4 passes total. What do we know about him? Not much. But the good thing about that, and we've talked about this, is that the Argos don't know much about him either, right? So Tommy Condell, Orlando, they all know what they have in Taylor Powell. Other teams that are coming to play against them do not. So it's a big question mark for a team trying to game plan for a guy like this, because how do you game plan for somebody you don't know about, right? Like, Court, I know we've had this a couple times when we were players, and you kind of look at the offense and try to figure out what they're trying to do, but it's a huge question mark, and it's, a bunch of hypotheticals that are going on in the meeting room, and how much help is that when you're trying to prep for a team?
Yeah, and I mean, it works to your benefit in the way that they can't necessarily attack you with anything specific because they don't have any tendencies against you. So really, the Toronto defense is preparing for Tommy Condell's offense and just anticipating that Taylor Powell is going to be a mirror image of one of the other quarterbacks that we've seen run that system. So there will be some interesting wrinkles probably put in that cater towards his skill set that only that coaching staff is familiar with. But by and large, I expect to see the same quarterback-friendly offense, if you will. A lot of lateral quick throws, screens, short passes, and then mixing in those very deep play action passes. It seems, Tommy Condell doesn't do a ton of the intermediate stuff. I could be wrong. This is anecdotal, but for me, it feels like we're either throwing the ball right now or they're dropping all the way back 60, 70 pro and they're letting that thing fly. And, just from watching Taylor Powell in practice and seeing him the little bit that I have, that looks like something that could fit his style because he's got a good arm and it seems like he can put the ball on the money, but how that will translate into points remains to be seen because this Ticats offense only has 4 passing touchdowns on the season. And if you're going up against one of the best defenses, one of the best teams in the league, if not the best team in the league, you absolutely have to score points. But before we get into that, let's talk about the rest of the people who will be on the field. Richard Leonard is moving out to the field corner. Tunde Adeleke is returning. He's playing the field half. Stavros Katsantonis at free safety. This defense right now, I don't know if they're searching for the right blend of chemistry or if they just have a specific person who they want to have on the field in Stavros Katsantonis, and they're finding any way to get that done. What do you see when you look at this Ticats defense?
Yeah, well, if you look back to last season, they actually came out with this lineup with Tunde Adeleke at field half, Stavros at free safety. They've done this a couple times, so this isn't completely new to them. So it's not, way outside of the box. They're reeling at some stuff. But if you do look at how this back end has played, and when I say back end, I mean against the pass, that's linebackers as well. That's also your D lineman trying to get in to the quarterback. But against the pass, they have not been great. Right? They have not been great. They're, second to last against pass efficiency, against big time plays that are going on against them. Like, they need to find something, right? So maybe part of this is trying to kind of shake up the lineup a little bit, maybe get some more chemistry in there. Who knows? Because only the ones that do are within the locker room. But what I will tell you, and Core, we know this very well, Richard Leonard at field corner is a difference maker, right? He's seen a lot of different things around this league. He knows how to play it out there, and it's a different world because that field side corner, you are so far away from the ball, right? You are so far, you are able to affect a lot of different things, maybe 2 routes at once because the ball takes so long to get over there. But Richard Leonard moving out there, maybe it's one of those playmaking type things. But I'm very interested to see how this goes because, we've talked highly about Tunde and his cover skills, and at field half, he's going to get tested for sure. But I am interested to see how this back end will kind of build on what they've had, the momentum with the turnovers and stuff of recent, because they will need that this game.
The thing I love about Richard Leonard at field corner is that he's going to be able to do some things that the casual fan might not even notice that are going to help to throw off Chad Kelly. Because when you start to dig into the numbers, I mean, I played in this rivalry. I hate the Argos as much as the next guy, but this guy Chad Kelly is putting up some numbers, and this offense, I mean, just over 400 yards a game. They're moving the ball better than anyone in the league. 38 points per game. They're putting up more points than anyone in the league, and they've only played 4 games. I mean, they scored 32, 35, 42, 45. They're putting up a lot of points. So to slow them down, I think changing up the pre-snap look with what you're going to get, the contours and the shapes of the defense post-snap, is something that you need to show a guy like Chad Kelly. You can't have him playing 101 football. You need veteran guys who have lots of experience who can give him, I'm showing you that the corner is bailing out and maybe the field half is going to be down there low trying to reroute that receiver in the seam. And then when you look to the center to take that snap, all of a sudden now your field half is dropping into a third and the corner is flat-footed, ready to jump on the out route. And I think those are going to be the dynamics that Richard Leonard and Tunde, being at the field half for that matter, are going to be able to have that chemistry and work together to add an extra element that Chad Kelly has to diagnose. But we'll see how it plays out. I think there's a lot to talk about in terms of ways that the Ticats will need to beat the Argos. But while we're talking about the Argos offense, let's just dive in a little deeper there. So last week, Pro Football Focus, they grade all of the players and all the position groups in the CFL. And of everybody who put on a helmet and took snaps last week, Chad Kelly graded out the highest with 91.2. And that's first among all players. He was 21 out of 25 for 351 yards and 3 touchdowns, 3 of his 5 touchdowns. So great performance against Montreal, another division opponent who's standing between the Argos and the Ticats right now in the standings. But this guy, he's throwing the ball deep. He's 50% on his throws over 20 yards. He's only been sacked 4 times. How can the Ticats, aside from what we talked about with showing different looks, how can the Ticats match up against this offense that has a very efficient passer and then a running game where AJ Ouellette is no slouch. Like, he is moving the chains, he's getting first downs, and he's punching it in when he gets close to the end zone.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things as a defense. You go, all right, so they're pretty good at passing the ball. Then they're also pretty good at running the ball. So what are we going to do, right? Because usually it's this whole thing about defenses. You try to take away what that offense is good at, right? But when you look at this, they're good at both right now, which is a difficult spot to be in. So you have to make them one-dimensional, right? And what I'll look at when I'm looking at the film and what I was watching on film is the run game. And Ryan Dinwiddie, the offensive coordinator, head coach of the Argos, his run game right now is pretty unique. He's doing a bunch of different things, whether it's running the ball inside, whether it's running it outside, when it's putting in Andrew Harris, taking AJ out for a little bit and giving him a breather, whatever it is, there's always some sort of change up that you're not really ready for. So I think when you look at the Ticats here, you have to make Chad Kelly beat you, because right now AJ Ouellette is running rampant, right? He runs people over. He is a hard runner. He's difficult to deal with. You have to make them one-dimensional, which is giving Chad Kelly some opportunities, which he's been playing really well. But when you dive down a little deeper, he plays really well by extending these plays, right? So when you're looking at these big plays that he's hitting downfield, right? Yes, he's standing in the pocket, delivering some. He is playing well. But a lot of these big-time throws downfield, these touchdowns, especially looking back to that Montreal game, it's him getting outside. It's him holding that ball for a second, because maybe the defense did do exactly what you said, Courtney, with the showing up a look, right? Corner showing low and then going high last second, whatever it might be. But then he's able to get out of the pocket, which is just too hard to cover for that long. So when you think about that, it's okay. We got to take away this run, right? But then we also have to try to keep him in this pocket, because where a lot of his big plays are happening is where he is getting outside the pocket, and he's got a big-time arm that he can get that ball downfield and make plays.
Yeah, and so when a quarterback's on the move, for the defensive backs, that means, the play is probably fully developed at that point. Everything turns into man-to-man. Find a body, get somebody. And then for that front, keeping a contain so the quarterback can't just run free and clear all over the place. And if he does step up, make sure that the rush lanes are balanced. If he counters back, make sure we're at the depth of the quarterback. Like, this is just a game where the Ticats have to be fundamentally sound. I think one of the keys for them is going to just be securing tackles. And if you look back at their first matchup of the season, AJ Ouellette was breaking a lot of tackles. A lot of the receivers, DeVaris Daniels, would catch a ball, break the first tackle, or maybe somebody took a poor angle, and that would allow them to slip through, especially if they get into these cover zero schemes where it's really one line of defense between that receiver and the end zone. I think those are going to be the keys. But talking about a little bit more of these guys who are going to be seeing, DeVaris Daniels, he's got 10 receptions on the year. He's a guy who was really a big name, and then he kind of fell into more of like a role player, and it seems like he's emerging again. And then Curly Gittins is on this team, and the young Coxie, who made an outstanding catch last week in Montreal. I think you can't really focus on one guy here. There's a number of players on this offense, and I think getting to those guys will be key. But what about special teams? I think the Ticats special teams has been keeping them in a lot of games. How do you think special teams plays into this game?
Yeah, I think that's where the Ticats are also going to need to really get this edge, right? To help somebody out like Taylor Powell, who, like we said, has thrown 4 passes, right? And they're going to ask him to do very simple things on offense, and they're going to lean a lot on James Butler for that. But where you need to get an offense that's kind of in that situation is good field position, right? And the best way to do that is special teams. And I am looking for McAllister to have another good, like a big game. He needs to, right? He needs to in this game. And he's going to have some opportunities, because when you look at the Argos special teams, Boris Beatty, he's, big leg. He can get them some points from pretty far out, has the longest kickoff average. But what that does is that, yes, you are kicking the ball far down the field and he's getting it down there. But what that does is it has so much separation between the guys running downfield to try to make the tackle and the returner that's catching that ball. So you have a lot of time to set up these returns, get to the field, whatever it might be. These are where you can get some big-time returns in, because you're going to need that to, ultimately give your offense some good field position.
Yeah, and Flowers Lloyd has a block punt, and he's also leading the CFL in special teams tackles. So he will be instrumental in helping swing the field, if the Ticats can get a big return. And then even if they don't necessarily score, getting 2 first downs before you have to punt it back to Toronto, over the course of the game, that swing of the field puts Mark Leggio in position to use that Leggio, because he's 100% on the season. And I think he might be one of the brightest spots. We remember what happened when Seth Small came onto this team. There was a significant turning point, because they could get, to the 50-yard line, 45-yard line, and they started to feel real confident that they're going to walk away with points. Now, we know that we've been asking, please get into the end zone, let's get 6. But it's been a lot of close games. Even the games where the Ticats had a big lead, it was never just signed, sealed, and delivered until the final whistle. So having a kicker who can get you points from far out, and having a special teams unit who can contain the opposing returner, I think those two things go well together, and playing that complementary football is something that the Ticats will need to do. So interesting enough, we talk about the offenses, we talk about the defenses, but just as a team, the Ticats, where is their identity now compared to where it was at the beginning of the year? They're -3 in the turnover ratio, but I feel very optimistic about that -3, because the last 2 games, this defense has showed up in a way that you would expect them to. They look like themselves. They were running to the ball. They were making athletic plays. If it wasn't the diving interception by Javian Elliott, it was the leaping over people and tipping the ball to your teammate, and Simone Lawrence catching a crumb off of Richard Leonard's deflection. That defense was flying around and playing with a vigor that looked reminiscent of a 2019 black and gold. Do you see this energy that they've created continuing, or was that a flash in the pan?
I see it continuing, because it's one of those things where once you've kind of done it once or twice, which they did, right? And the Edmonton game's a perfect example, right? They had a bunch of turnovers. That pick 6 by Stavros was a way to kind of blow that game open. But it's going to look different every single game, right? And I know that's not going to blow anybody's mind, but what that means is that when you're playing a team like the Argos who runs the ball well, then maybe it's punching that ball out a couple times, right? AJ Ouellette is going to try to run people over. That means he's going to stay up. That means that third guy that's coming in, he's trying to fight for those extra yards. They got to come in there and they got to punch the ball out. They've tasted this turnover machine now, right? The Ticats have. And that's where it's going to just keep building. They're going to start believing in, okay, yeah, I can punch for that ball instead of making that tackle. And I can go for this interception instead of just trying to knock the ball down. So I'm really looking forward to them building off that momentum. But like I said, every single game is different. And this one is probably the biggest test, because Chad Kelly, best player in terms of grade last week. AJ Ouellette, one of the best running backs, if not the best in the league right now. Other than, I'll always argue, James Butler, because of how he's been playing of recent. But I think this is going to be one of those things that will carry over, because it is a confidence thing, Court. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you've been in that world. Is You just got to get a couple, and then now you're starting to believe that, okay, now I know how to play this game a little bit more. I know who I'm working with. I can make these type of plays.
Yeah, and Toronto, just speaking to that whole theme of, making plays, they're plus 11 in the turnover differential, which puts them first in the CFL. And they've got a couple of guys who've got a knack for getting the ball. Robertson Daniel had that triple pick game a couple of weeks ago against BC. But to not shoot themselves in the foot is one of the biggest favors that the Ticats can do. They escaped last week, turning the ball over on the opening play, the opening kickoff. There was a sky kick, fumbled, recovered by the opponent. But they were able to fight through that and get back. This week, I think they give the ball to the man who has been very productive. James Butler, you mentioned him, 14 carries for 127, a season high last week. He has 2 runs over 20 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think he's the brightest bright spot on this team right now, most consistent, and turning around and handing the ball off to a running back who is behind what I think is the best offensive line right now is probably the safest bet. Now, Toronto's going to know that, but sometimes when you're playing big boy ball, everybody in the stadium knows what you're going to do, and you just turn to the other sideline and tell the coach, well, then why don't you stop me? And I think that's what's going to happen tonight. I think Tommy is going to give the ball to James Butler. He's got the running bug. We know he can throw it 65 times a game, but when he turns around and hands it off 15 times, that gets me going. James Butler loves it. The defense is swarming, and when the offense is moving the chains, that allows the defense to rest. Those two effects compound on each other. The guys are energized when they step out on that field, and they got great field position and a lot of energy. They've had a chance to sip that Gatorade. So,
And Court, what I do agree with you there is that they will absolutely hand that ball off to James Butler, but believe that with Tommy Condell understanding Taylor Powell's 4 passes in the CFL and getting used to this offense and first time starting, all of that fun stuff, he is going to make sure that he limits the opportunity for this opportunistic defense of the Argos to take that ball away, right? He is going to put it in James Butler's hand a lot. He's going to give probably Powell some runs. And hey, call me crazy, but this is probably the time we might see a little bit of Loxley. Kai Loxley coming in, right? Because he is that athletic quarterback. He's been there before. Why not now? He's been on the team for 3 weeks, I believe it is. Why not now, right? And maybe there will be something, because I know Tommy always has these kind of things up his sleeve every once in a while, so I'd be interested to see if that comes out this week, but believe that he will keep that ball nice and safe, and the safest way to do it is, here you go, hand the ball off to James Butler, or like you said, the easiest read for a quarterback is once you hand it off 10 times, nice little play action. You have 2 receivers to look at that are running all the way downfield like Tim White and Duke Williams, and all you have to do is either pick one or the other. Throw it to him if he's kind of open, or throw it to him if he's kind of open. That's the probably easiest way for, I think, Tommy to protect this ball against the Argos D.
That's it. Hit circle or square, baby. That's it. and they, if you look at this, what position group is this? If I just tell you the numbers, 0, 89, 20. Those are the jersey numbers of the quarterbacks for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Taylor Powell, Kai Loxley, and Antonio Pipkin rocking the number 20 like a young running back. It is amazing. And all of those guys can move, so I wouldn't be surprised to see some QB power or some draws on second and long. So who are the key matchups in this game? Who are the people to watch? Who are you going to be looking at and highlighting when they go toe-to-toe?
Yeah, I think the one that's going to be interesting is Kenneth George Jr. versus DeMonte Coxey, because you said it. You like Coxey. He stands out on film. He stands out on the field when he's playing. He's a big body. And, hey, we called out Javian Elliott last game, right? We said, hey, you know what, man? It's your time to make a big play, right? He goes and makes a big play. Shout out RJ for calling that on the broadcast. But he goes and makes a big play, right? Kenneth George has now played enough games where he kind of understands what's going on. And when Chad Kelly wants that one-on-one shot, you saw it in Montreal with that big catch that Coxey had. He's that big body when they're trying to get him over the middle on those deep shots. Kenneth George Jr. is going to have to step up at some point and make a big-time play. And I'm hoping it's this game, and when Chad Kelly tries to air that ball out. He gets up there, makes a play. I'm very interested to see that because I know that they're not going to allow a guy like Curly Gittins to get too much space. A guy like Devaris Daniels, right, to get too much space. But it's going to be those one-on-one matchups on the outside. So that's the first one I'm looking for.
Absolutely. That is absolutely going to be a great matchup. And you know what? I'm interested to see, really, we talked about him a lot, but James Butler, he did so much last year, came over here really thinking that this offense might have a fresh face because it was so pass heavy. And it seems as though he's been able to influence the play calling to the point where they're handing the ball off as much as they ever have. And will that translate into a little bit more man-to-man defense from the Argos so that you can get, a big-time receiver like Duke Williams in one-on-one, or you can get Tim White in one-on-one. Matter of fact, Terry Godwin in one-on-one. Like, all of these guys can catch the rock. So I think running the ball to open up that pass game and then getting in some play action, the effectiveness of James Butler will definitely be noted. But if AJ Ouellette is going off, then that means that the Ticats aren't going to have the ball. And he is one of the best at getting first downs in this league. So whichever running back asserts themselves is going to help their team. And so that is what I'm going to be watching closely. And outside of those guys who are going to be toting the rock full time, where would you isolate just a single player who could be an X factor, who can, break this game open if there was one guy who you had to put your thumb on?
Yeah, I think, we mentioned him earlier with the special teams thing, but I think Tyreek McAllister is going to be the one guy that's going to help this. Not for the reason of special teams, but for the reason as a receiver, running back, Swiss Army knife for this offense. Because when you start having to protect that ball and make sure that it's not getting into harm's way, well, you got to start doing different things. Misdirection, you hear us talk about that a lot, right? Is, having one guy go one way, another guy come the other way, not sure who has the ball, all of a sudden, boom, he's on top of you, 5-yard, 6-yard gain. I think when you're looking at this Argos D, who's going to focus so much on James Butler because of all the reasons you said, he's playing unbelievable, he's making people miss. I think a guy like Tyreek McAllister, who is that running back type receiver, it's going to be those easy throws, those things that you saw him score a touchdown on, right? Him taking it 64 yards, I believe it was, to the house. Little things like that, little flips, reverses. I think he's going to be a guy to make this offense open up to allow Taylor Powell to have a little bit more of a calm game, right? Allow Tommy Condell to call some more things. I think he's that Swiss Army knife that you'll see him catch a bunch of screens, he'll take handoffs, he'll take little flips, all that kind of stuff. I'm really looking forward to him having a big game and helping this offense out.
Every time I hear the name Tyreek McAllister, I can't help but think of Dexter McCluster.
Yeah.
And I know that's a different league, but man, these guys remind me of each other, and that's one heck of a player. So, hey, Ticats fans, during Ticats pregame, every home game, we will run the Greenworks Listen to Win contest. And as today is a home game, fans need to listen for the keyword and go to ticats.ca/Greenworks to enter. Today, one lucky listener will win a Greenworks 1800 PSI pressure washer with high pressure soap applicator, courtesy of Greenworks. Be sure to tune in to Tiger Cats pregame presented by Greenworks at listen.ticats.ca starting at 6:30 for your chance to win. And of course, that pregame show is with Bubba O'Neill and Andy Fantuz, our boys from the Ticats Audio Network. They're going to get you warmed up at 6:30. And then at 7:30, you got RJ and Luke Tasker on the call. So, Mike, before we drop this thing, tell me right now, who scores first and who scores last?
Put me on the spot here. I like it. All right, so I think who scores first? I think we're going to have a Tim White deep shot. I think they're going to take some shots early, open. Yeah, they're going to know exactly what the Argos are trying to do, maybe gain the ball off once or twice, but then at some point in that first drive, I think we're going to see a bomb to a double move Tim White. I think that's who's going to score first. Who's going to score last? Kai Loxley on a 1-yard sneak because we're running the clock out. We're getting down there, grinding them out. pulling this win out.
Yeah, and maybe that's a 1 yard sneak from the 50-yard line that turns into a 55-yard sneak. And then he slides down at the opponent's 4. And then we kick a field goal, maybe. Anyways, that will be exciting. You know, this game is a rivalry game, so regardless of where it is in the season or regardless of where they are in the standings, this one's going to be tough. It's going to be hot. It's going to be exciting. So if you're not there, make sure you tune in to listen.ticats.ca. This has been Tiger Cats Game Day presented by Tiffany Gate Fresh Gourmet. Please make sure to check us out on YouTube if you're listening. And if you're listening, make sure that you subscribe to this channel so you can catch us every week and the rest of the Ticats Audio Network crew. So until next week, my name is Courtney Stephen for Mike Daly. Hope you have a great game day.
It's game day and you're ready. So are we. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly are here every game day with their insights into today's game. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.